The first paper you have on your table should be Life Stages Planning for Retirement. And we talk about when you're 21 to 35 how you have to start saving, the ritual of saving, and increase it every time. We've all been told since we were little, every time you got a raise, take part of that raise and put it into the savings account. Now, I don't know which one of you has actually done that. It wasn't me, but that's what we should have done. What ends up happening is, as we go through the stages, we need to put more money away. But when we're younger, it's when we have our children. We have daycare costs. We're paying off student loans. I know Sally Mae is a dear friend of Jasmine. They're very close. We have to get that car. We have to get that apartment. We want to have more stuff. And so sometimes we get caught up with having stuff without having a long-term vision. When we're 35 to 65, we talk about increasing your savings to 15% of your income. Maximize your investing in tax-deferred and tax-free vehicles. Most people do that through the 401k at work or 403b if you work for a nonprofit or a school. So that's the saving stages. Then the next one we talk about is the pre-retiree, which is probably where almost everyone here is getting close to. When you're 50, you get to start making catch-up contributions to the retirement plans. Don't think about it, just do it. 50 to 55, long-term care insurance. Everybody here, I will say easily, has known somebody who's had to be in a nursing home. The odds are there. The costs are great. Medicare doesn't cover it. What do you do? So that's Jeff. That's not me. Is there going to be a pension plan for you? Those are rare and far and few between. There's just not a whole lot of pension plans out there. But if you have a pension plan, if you work for a company where you got vested, when you're around 50 is the time to reach out to that company and find out what you have to do to get the forms. What is your benefit going to be? So you start getting the process and you're starting to gather your information. It's also a good time for you to pull out those life insurance policies in your retirement and your HSA accounts and see who the beneficiaries are. I know every year when you guys pick up your taxes, I ask you to check your beneficiaries. I know 10% of you actually do it. We had a client, I'm going to say about 7 years ago, and when they were picking up their return, the wife kept elbowing the husband. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? She said, tell her about the beneficiary. And I'm like, okay, what about the beneficiary? His ex-wife, she was still on it. When he got divorced, he didn't take the ex-wife off because he said, who else was he going to leave the money to? Well, when he got remarried, he never put the new wife on. When she found out, it was not pretty apparently at that house. But the elbow, so something to do. And then this is probably something that Jeff might hit me on, repurposing unneeded life insurance policies. Some of you might have bought a big life insurance policy when your kids were little. You wanted to make sure you could raise the kids, put them through college. You might not need that life insurance policy anymore. So if it's a term policy, you can cancel it. If it's a whole life policy, maybe it's time to do some other planning with it. Take the assets out, maybe put it into a 401k account or do other things, and that's, again, Jeff questions. Then we talk about what it's like when you retire. When you're 60, a widow or a widower becomes eligible for reduced Social Security benefits. Hopefully no one here needs to worry about that. 62, you can take early retirement from Social Security. It's a drop from what you're going to take, not the smartest move, but it is available. And even to me, worse idea is a reverse mortgage, but it is available to you. 65, you're eligible for Medicare. Now, we had a Medicare class a couple weeks ago. Medicare must be applied for 3 months before you turn 65. If you do not apply for it, the rates can be higher. They can lock you out for a year. It's a nightmare. Medicare is one of those that you don't go by yourself and do. It's so silly, but it's so crucially important that you do it right. When you're 65, you cannot contribute to an HSA anymore. But you can access the money in your HSA accounts for non-medical purposes without taking a penalty. If you are 66 and you're born, when you turn 66, you're born between 43 and 54, that's your full retirement age for Social Security. Those of us born between 55 and 59, your retirement is delayed by 2 months for every year. And if you're born 1960 or later, your full retirement age is at 67. 70 is the maximum amount you'll get for Social Security. So if you can defer taking your Social Security till you turn 70, it'll keep growing 8% a year from 65 and up. That's the only guarantee, well, as long as Social Security is funded, that you'll get 8% growth. 70 and a half, you have to start taking the money out of the retirement accounts, including Roth 401 accounts, not your traditional, the traditional and the Roth 401 accounts, but not the Roth IRA or an HSA. You're no longer eligible to make IRA contributions, and if otherwise eligible, you can make contributions to a Roth IRA and a spousal Roth IRA. Now, weird little things, minors. If you have children here who are under the age of 18, if they have earned income, a contribution can be made to a traditional or a Roth IRA. So if you have a child who's working at Carowinds and they made $1,500 and you have an extra $1,500, you could put that into a Roth IRA for them. Cool thing about Roth IRAs, we don't need them for your taxes. Kid doesn't need to know they have the money. If you tell your 21-year-old that you've put $5,000 in a Roth IRA, they will take that money out and they will have a really good party. They might buy a car, they'll have a trip, and that money will be gone. 27, they might take it out to help buy something else. What you try to do if you set up a Roth IRA for your kid is when the child turns 30 and they come to you and say, Mom, Dad, daycare, the house, I can't save 2 cents for retirement, then you're like, I got you started. Traditionally, if you put in $8,000 before you turn 18, you'll have over $1 million when you retire at 67 because the money grows. So it's a smart way of doing it. And then, of course, as we discussed with divorce, make sure you update all the beneficiary designations. Also, the title to your vehicles. All right. See, we're part of the way done. It's not so daunting. The next thing, we talked about the first rule of retirement. Carol's first rule is you cannot have any debt. You do not have a car payment. You do not have a house payment. You do not have a student loan payment. You don't owe Lady Visa, MasterCard, any of them. You are debt-free. And the reason for that is if you have any debt, that's more money you have to have in retirement to service that debt. So if you have $100,000 in debt, you're going to need probably $120,000 saved up to pay that debt plus pay the interest. I want you to live easily and not be concerned about that kind of stuff. We talk about, and there's some indicators on here, websites that you can go to. What I want you to do, and there'll be worksheets that we'll talk about after the meal, is to add up what you think your expenses are going to be when you retire. How much are your utilities? How much is your food? Your medical expenses will go up rather dramatically for most of us, especially if you have long-term care insurance. You're going to have to figure out what do you need. So then you come up with a figure, and it was like, okay, Social Security is going to pay this. Okay, now I have a hunk. Now, of that hunk, let's say it's $24,000. So typically to fund $24,000 a year, you need $400,000 in savings. Now, that's when I went back to school in the dark ages. That was in the 70s. And we were taught you use a 4% rate of return. And if you take out 4% a year, that there's like a 90-some% chance that you'll never outlive your money. Financial planner. I am not one. But I want you to start looking at where the money's going to come and go. You know, the thing is, once you retire, you're no longer earning money. Now, I know a lot of people, that's kind of scary. And that's two things I do want to touch on. One is what your retirement's going to look like. Everybody here has a different view of retirement. I don't want to sit home and knit and crochet and watch TV all the time. I don't know who's on Oprah. I'm really good with that. And I only watched Dr. Phil once with a girlfriend. But so my retirement is not one of going home and sitting and crocheting. I want to go do things. I've thought about teaching at a community college, selling real estate. And my daughter reminds me that those are career changes. That's not retirement. I'm not sure what I'm going to do, so I'm not ready. Some of you have probably started to think about what you want to do. I want to make sure you have something that gets you up in the morning when you retire. Every 5 to 7 years, sadly, I have a client commit suicide. They're typically a type A-driven person who has worked really, really hard all their life, and then they quit. and they have nothing to do. So part of your retirement consideration that's not, really on this paper is, what does retirement look to you? If you have children and you get to go travel, that's great. If you are thinking of getting an RV and you're going to travel the U.S., please do not buy one. Please. Rent the thing and try it for a month or two and make sure you don't kill each other. They're small. You don't get to leave each other. Any burps and farts will be in this thing. So be very, very careful of what you do. Don't just say, that's what we want to do. Rent it and try it. Same thing with if you say, my whole life I've been wanting to live in the desert. Rent a place for a month or two. Do not run out and buy a new home. I want you to move cautiously, because if you rent a place for 2 months and you realize that having a cactus for your nearest neighbor is not what you want, if you've bought it, you're committed, you're stuck. People tend to grab onto an idea and then they're kind of embarrassed to admit that wasn't it. So I tell you to move slowly. There's a lot of ways of retiring gently. A lot of people that we see that work successfully will go from working 40 hours a week to 20, and that kind of gives them a chance to ease into it. But again, you have to have a purpose. You have to have a reason for getting up in the morning. And again, visiting kids and grandchildren is great. Traveling is great. There's a lot of things you can do, but make sure you have an idea of what retirement looks for you. Again, don't want to see you knitting, waiting for the phone to ring and hoping that your kids are going to call. All right, the next page on this one that looks the Excel spreadsheet is the budgeting. Now, the first one on the top left says personal budgeting while you're working. For those of you who've seen me about budgets, you've all seen this before. I'm pretty consistent. We talk about your charitable gifts. We talk about your savings. Now, when I'm talking about saving here 10%, that's the minimum. And if your company matches and puts 3% in a retirement plan, absolutely, you have to start doing it. What's on here at the bottom is debts. My favorite thing. Credit cards and student loans. This is the time to pay those off. So this is your traditional, how am I paying my bills every week, every 2 weeks. The next page is the same information, but in a little bit bigger format. So if you're going to take this home, it's a little bit easier to work with. The last page of this handout is the retirement budget. Now, you'll notice that the charitable gifts are still the same, but there's no saving component on here. One unique thing is when you are retired and you take money out of your retirement account, I want that to be money you use. I don't want you to call up Jeff and pull out $20,000 from your retirement account and move $10,000 into savings. So now you're paying taxes on money that you're not using. You only take what you need. Now there's required minimum distributions and all that brouhaha. Again, that's Jeff's thing. But I want to make sure you only use the money that you need to use. You'll notice that the housing is down to 10 to 15% of your budget, and that's assuming that your mortgage and your second mortgage are gone. The other thing, at the very bottom, I've got debts at 0%. It's still on here because you might have them, but it shouldn't be. The differences between the two is you're not going to see daycare expenses, you're not going to see tuition. A lot of the things are kind of railed back. So what I'm hoping that you'll do, I truly hope that you do this, is sit down and fill out what you think this is going to look like for you for retirement. How much are you going to pay? Again, I'm hoping no mortgage, but you're still going to have real estate taxes, you're still going to have homeowners insurance, repairs and maintenance and furniture. What does that look like? And then you add all of this up. And if you want, reach out to Rick tomorrow and he'll send it to you by Excel so you can fill it in yourself. And say, okay, this is how much I'm going to need. And then say, okay, now this is what I'm going to get from Social Security. How do I pay for the difference? Some of you may be surprised to find out how much you're getting from Social Security. Some will think it's a lot more than they thought. Some will think it's a lot less. And there's ways of getting the money from Social Security. If you've been married and married over 10 years, you can collect from your spouse, even if you're divorced. For some people, it's a stretch to, if you have an spouse, you can, or even your current spouse, you can collect off of their account. So let's say if I went to Social Security and I was 62, my Social Security was going to be $1,000 a month, and I collect off my ex-husband, you only get half of theirs. So let's say that'd be $700. I might be smart to collect the $700 off of his and let mine keep building. Now, that's a really great thing, but that expires. Oh no, okay, that part we're still good on. They're looking at tweaking a lot of the Social Security things. So a lot of it now, if I want to collect on, but my ex-husband would have to be retired. If he was still working, he could do something that's called you set it and forget it, where he files for Social Security and then doesn't claim it, then I can go in and borrow. But that's only good till next March. That expires. So you've only got a couple more months to do that. The next part we want to start in is when and how to claim Social Security benefits. Now, the very first thing I'd like you guys to do when you go home, the first thing I guess was doing the budget. I want you to figure out how much money you're going to need. The second thing is to go on www.ssa.gov My Account. It's on here. You will pull your own earnings statement from Social Security. We're going to go over WANDA workers in about 3 minutes, but you need to know what is on your report and how much you're really going to get. You know, if you do one of those estimators on Fidelity or another site, you'll be close, but why not get the real number? Medicare, we've talked about it earlier. No matter when you anticipate taking Social Security, if you're planning on waiting till you're 70, great. Apply for Medicare 3 months before you turn 65. If you delay, the insurance, the Part B, and the prescription drug coverage will cost more, and it's hard to get. I have a girlfriend of mine, actually, who I kept trying to tell her stuff, but she wouldn't do it, and now she's trying to get in, because she's like, oh, I'm covered at work. Well, work, when she turned 65, said, well, no, we know you have Medicare, and so she had nothing for a little bit. She fell into an abyss. And we've talked about the ability to file as a spouse first. If you've been married more than 10 years, whether you're divorced, widowed, or still married, you have the ability to receive benefits from your spouse. Now, this is an either or. So if your spouse made a lot more money, you might want to claim and get 50% of theirs or 100% of yours. You get to choose. You don't get both. It'd be nice, but you don't get to get both. And then the bottom here is a nice little chart. I'm not going to go over it because you'll be all asleep. So let's see, the second page of this. The other thing that you can get is the widower and surviving divorced spouse benefit chart. You know where that is now because it's on here. And even if you remarry, you can continue to receive benefits based on the work record of your former spouse. It sounds kind of odd. If you were married and divorced multiple times and you married each ex-husband or wife for more than 10 years, you could have 3 people collecting on you. It's interesting. The other thing that's kind of weird, at least Randall and I found it weird when we were talking about this today, is if you are a disabled widow or widower or a surviving divorced spouse who's at least 50, but not yet 60, and you remarry, the IRS can, so used to dealing with the IRS. Social Security can disregard your marriage if they think you are only married to get the money. Yeah. Has any of them ever been married? Nobody's going to be married just for the money. It's not going to work. Not for that money, exactly. All right, the next thing I want you to look at is the Social Security statement, and this is Wanda Worker. She's a good, hard-working lady. We like her a lot. When you go on socialsecurity.gov and you print off yours, the front page will look similar. It'll have your name on it, obviously. There's some verbiage on the front. You can read it at home. I'm not going to read to you. But turn to the second page where it says your estimated benefits. The first line under retirement, it says you have earned enough credits to qualify. So that means that she's worked 4 quarters a year for at least 10 years, 40 credits. So she's done that. If she retires at age 67, she's going to get $1,702 a month. Again, yours will have your information. If she waits to age 70, it'll be about $2,100 a month. So now this is a simple math thing. You take the difference between the two, you multiply it by the number of months, and then you figure out if it's worth the 2 or not. 62, it goes down to $1,174. That's a huge reduction. We all know people have taken it at 62 or 63. I really, any way possible, delay it. If you can delay it to age 70, that's the max, that's the sweet spot. From your retirement age to 70, it goes up by 8% a year. That's a great rate of return, especially when you consider at that point you're going to have most of your investments in long-term, stable, not too risky investments. Disability is one I try to pull out for the younger people. If you are over the age of 30, married, or have children, your odds of being disabled are much higher than they are of dying. In this case, dear Wanda is going to get $1,544 a month. That might be enough to keep her going, but normally when you're disabled, you have something called medical expenses, and they can be catastrophic. And when you're disabled, you don't get Medicare for the first 2 years. We have a unique government. So you have to pay your medical insurance, you have to pay your medical bills, and you're all doing this on $1,500 a month. This is why when I talk to you guys and you ask me, I say if you have disability, short-term or long-term disability insurance at work, get it. I can't tell you how many clients have gotten in their early 30s multiple sclerosis, and it comes in remission and it comes and goes. It happens. The insurance is normally cheap if you get it through a company plan. If you don't have that ability, our company is really small, as you guys know. We do it through Aflac. It's a really reasonable cost when you consider what you're risking. Again, $1,544 a month is not going to go far when you consider living expenses, and medical insurance. Survivor, there's a survivor benefit. Again, mainly if you have children. So if your child is under the age of 18 or in high school, they're going to get $1,190 a month. The spouse, if she's not working, will get $1,190 a month, taking care of the kids. Family max on this case is $2,941. I always like to have this number when I'm planning life insurance for somebody. So if you were going to pass, we hear, well, you should have $1 million of life insurance. Well, maybe not. If the family's going to get in $3,000 a month and everything else is paid for, what do you need? So again, this is just giving you information. Now, the other thing is on the bottom here, it says this is your date of birth, this is your social security number. Obviously, yours will have yours. And they explain how the benefits are estimated. Flip it over to the next page where it says your earnings record. This is what everything is driven off of. These are where your W-2 earnings that get turned in and they're recorded here. I want you, when you get yours, to look them over. Every now and then, you've worked for a year and there's a big fat zero. Your social security number might have been misrecorded. Somebody might have keyed it in wrong. Some of these people like me, or I predate computers, so somebody had to manually type it in and Lord knows what happened. So look it over. The next form we gave you is a request to correct it, just because we've seen that many errors. I'd rather you have the form and you're ready to go. The other thing I want you to see on this form is in the middle here, in the middle of the page, it shows the total that was paid in. Now, everybody tends to think that they've paid in $100,000 or $200,000 in Social Security taxes. You haven't. You typically get back everything that you've paid in 3 years. This is why the system's going broke. So if you take a case, good old Wanda, she paid in $32,219. She's going to get $1,700 a month. Under 3 years, she's getting it all back. Now, her company paid the same amount of money, basically. So then we can say, okay, she paid in for 6 years. Most people on average collect 20 years. So now you can kind of understand why we're hurting. So the first part, the Social Security, is covering your retirement income, your survivor disability, and your disability. On the right-hand side is the Medicare Tax, and that pays for the medical bills. We kind of know what that is. So again, you have to go get yours. I'll be asking all of you who are here when you bring in your taxes if you pulled it down. There's some information on the last page. If you have questions, they do answer the phones, and actually these are normally very patient people. That being said, if you ever have to go to the office, do not go to Charlotte, and don't go to Charlotte. They will treat you like cattle. You'll go in and you stand in line to get a number to go find out what line you have to go stand in. It's not where you go. It's really government bureaucracy. It's the DMV on steroids. Rock Hill has this lovely office, and they're nice. They actually say hello and they smile at you. Yes, it's a 15-minute drive down the road. It's worth it. So, if you have parents that you're trying to help with this, try to find, if they're near a big city, try to find the little town that's on the outskirts. Go to that one. It's just they're government workers. They get paid the same no matter what they do. You want it, normally the smaller offices, you're going to get better care. All right, that's your Social Security. Now, and again, the second form you got behind that is to correct your earnings. This is the tough one. And it's a generic form. I do not have my name or address on this. Make 1,000,000 copies and give this out to everybody you know. If your mother were to die tomorrow, do you know where her stuff is? If you were going to die tomorrow, where's your stuff? Now, I will tell you, when I filled this out the first time, I showed it to my daughter, and the first thing she did is, okay, Mom, I told her where I filled it all out. It looked really pretty. She goes, let's see where your passport is. And it's like, oh, I never put it away yet. It's over. It's like, oh, man. I was convicted. We don't know what we don't know. It's a difficult conversation, but we're going to die. So we want to make this easier for everybody else. So the first thing is, what's my Social Security number? Where's my birth certificate? My passport, my driver's license, adoption papers. It's all needed. Insurance. We've all heard the story of somebody who's been paying an insurance policy for years, but nobody could find the policy. They didn't know who it was with. Or they paid it off 10 years ago. People are nodding. This has happened. Not to call you out, but you know. So we want to make it easier for the people that we're leaving behind. The second page, ownership. Where do you keep your real estate deeds? How about the car titles? Is there anything else of value? Every now and again we have somebody who had inherited some farmland up in Ohio that, you know, was in the family name. And they only find out about it when the person who bought it at tax auction went back to get a clear title. They didn't even know. Taxes. If you know they're my client, I've got your returns. I got you on that. But if not, you've got to find out where they keep them. Banking. What's their bank account? Where do they bank? All right, number 6 is credit and lending. This one doesn't seem important. I've had a lot of people, when they pass and they have credit card bills, it's funny that sometimes a credit card company will go after the estate. And they're trying to get the insurance proceeds to put someone in the ground and take care of everything. And Chase is knocking on the door saying, when do we get paid? If you don't know, you know, this is where we need the information. Again, information's power. Investments, where are the brokerage accounts? Are there 529 accounts set up for the grandchildren? What is out there? When these accounts go dormant after so many years, they get sent to North Carolina for escheatment. The unclaimed property, you see the ads at late night TV. This is how it happens. Most states back in the good old days, if you had General Electric wrote you a $5 check, you didn't cash it, they would send the $5 to North Carolina with your name on it. And eventually you could go on their little website, put in your name, and you'd get that $5 back. Well, North Carolina says, you know, if it's under $100, just give us the money. They don't even ask who it's for. So, yeah, we love our government. Number 8, estate planning. Where's your will? Do you have a will? If you have children and don't have a will, stand over here so I can start beating you. I've spoke to all of you here about the importance of having a will. We've talked about a healthcare power of attorney. We've talked about a living will. If you live in North Carolina, you can get the healthcare power of attorney and the living will for free. It's on the Secretary of State website. Free is my favorite price. It is. What's the saying? If it's free, it's for me. You need to do this. If you have children, it's really a form of child abuse not to have this done. Your children are too important for not have a destination for them. And you've also all heard me talk about whoever is to raise the children, have somebody else do the money. sadly, I've seen people justify things that a normal person wouldn't justify when there's money left to children. Retirement. Where's the retirement money? You know, with that, what Jeff was talking about with that one single premium policy, it'd be nice to have that written down so you know that there's money available. You don't want to lose it. You don't want to go to a sheetman and have the state hold it maybe forever. We worked really hard for what we have. We want to enjoy. We want to enjoy our lives based on what we saved up, and maybe we want to leave something to our children. We have to take good care of it. We have to be good stewards. Number 10 is something we had to add. Sadly, my daughter-in-law's sister passed, and she had a Facebook account, and we had no way of notifying her friends that she had passed. By the time we proved everything to Facebook, the funeral was over, and there was a lot of upset people. So we asked for your emails and passwords. You know, how many people here get bills electronically or bank statements electronically? Well, if you can't get into the account, you have no information, and you don't see anything coming in the mail, so you don't miss it. And then, of course, small businesses. Where are the incorporation papers? Where are the bank statements? Where's the accounting? Who's doing it? And of course, at the end, I've got the CPA firm. It should always be me, but there might be some others out there, and the payroll company. This is just a way of where's the information. And I know it's kind of depressing to think about writing the stuff down for when you leave. It is, but it's kind of like an I love you. If Larry writes it down, then Christy knows where it is, unless he didn't file the passport away where he's supposed to. It's hard to be perfect. None of us are. We're just trying to make it easier on those we love. And the whole idea with the retirement planning is just to get ready for the next step in our lives. There's so much information out there. Sometimes it's like drinking from a fire hydrant. You don't know what to believe. You don't know where to go. And sometimes it's just so much that it's just easier to ignore it. And you guys did good. You all came. We had a lot of people who didn't. But you're taking the steps. You're trying to be smart. You're trying to make good decisions. You're basing things on fact, not fear, not on rumor. You're going to be large and in charge. And that's what you're supposed to be. So I really give you guys a lot of credit for being here.